Hey y'all, welcome to the Team LoCoFit Roundtable, hosted by me, Laurin Conlon, owner of Team LoCoFit. Each week, I am joined by one of our coaches to dive headfirst into the nutrition, training, mindset, and coaching strategies we use with our clients. If you loved the show, please subscribe, leave us a review, tell a friend, you know the drill. And for more information about coaching, the programs we offer, and additional content, visit teamlocofit.com.
All right. I always fucking say super excited. I need to get a new intro for the not intro.
We need some new adjectives.
Because I was so used to like, hey y'all, but I can't say hey y'all because we have the pre-recorded intro.
I mean, you technically can, but you know,
hey,
it's
y'all,
gonna be like, hey y'all.
We need like the soundboard for
oh my god.
playing.
If we had a soundboard, that would be amazing.
I know, me and Green have talked about doing it. It was just like crystalline noises.
That'd be amazing. And then we can do it like sloth noises or like yeah, literally. It's like I don't even need to react to anything. I just
That's kind of the day we're having. If you guys are watching the video, I'm not drinking a beer. I really wish I was. It's been a testing kind of a week, not gonna lie. But this is a lavender mojito kombucha, which is actually the tits.
Not mojito.
I'm really pleased with it. It's only 7 carbs for the whole bottle, and not like that fucking matters to me. I have a million carbs, but if anybody's wondering, it's called Mother Kombucha is the brand, and it looks like it's in a beer bottle, so it just kind of makes you feel a little
it makes you feel like cool.
A little fancier, you know. Unfortunately, not a mojito or a beer, but we will be drinking mojitos in a few months.
Oh my god. I'm so hyped.
If you're watching the video, you can also see me dancing.
I've never actually like sat on a beach and just had like drinks all day long. So I'm definitely...
For context, I feel like we should...
It's like, what are our coaches doing when they're not
give a
working?
little context. So, you know, it's not only has it been a trying week, it's been a trying year.
Couple months.
Yeah, a couple months. And, you know, everybody's been really kicking ass and working really hard. So I wanted to take the coaches on a vacation. So me and the other Team LoCoFit coaches, just the girls, not Ryan. Sorry, Ryan can fuck off. For these few days, we're going to go to an all-inclusive resort in Jamaica. I'm so excited to take you guys there because I've been a few times and it's bomb. And, you know, it'd just be nice for, you know, you'll be done with prep. Mm-hmm. You know, Lauren will be done with her RD internship. Like everything will just be
like a big celebration.
You know, like a big, hey, we're just gonna hang out a few days and literally just eat good food, drink good alcohol, lay by the pool, go to the beach, like just do a trip like that. So I'm really excited. It's nice to have something to look forward to besides like, hey, nothing's open.
Yeah. Actually, it feels like April lasted like a week. So I feel like it'll come by pretty quick.
I don't know what things feel like anymore, to be completely honest.
I don't feel anything. What are those?
Hey, so we're really dead inside if you can't tell, but that's actually not what we were talking about today. I have some more podcasts coming out on mental health soon, but that's not today. Today we're talking about planning your competition season during a pandemic, and it is the middle of May. And pretty much all the shows have been canceled, regardless of what organization you compete in, no matter what sport you really compete in. I mean, I know they just had a UFC fight. I really don't know how they did it, but I think there was like no fans there. Like it was something like funky. But pretty much all sports are off. Powerlifting meets have been canceled. Bodybuilding shows have been canceled. And, you know, we coach a lot of people in the physique world. So that's, you know, affecting people, of course, and particularly, you know, affecting you right now. So, you know, all the shows, besides apparently there's a June show in Oklahoma. Apparently that guy opened everything up. Might be Joe Exotic, not sure. Haven't really looked into it. But apparently Oklahoma.
Joe Exotic classic.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh my god, and all the suits can be like leopard print.
I'm gonna make a stage comeback just for that show.
Yes.
So maybe Joe Exotic is putting on the show, or maybe he officially won the governor position. I'm not sure.
Or maybe he's competing. Who knows?
He could be competing.
You don't know what wait, no, he's in jail, isn't he?
Yeah, he's definitely in jail. But I don't know. I haven't really kept up. But last I heard, he was in jail. But anyways, apparently in Oklahoma there was a show in June. But besides that, most shows are still tentative for July. And then all of the national shows have been pushed back significantly later than normal. So the first national show,
end of August, I think, right?
Yeah. So the first national show, which is where people can earn their professional status in the NPC, going to the IFBB, is Junior USA's, and that's usually that's in May. And now it's being pushed tentatively, which again is probably still a big tentative, I'm not sure, to the last week of August. And then the next one is a few days later, is North American. So that's the first one that I'm having people go to. But so pretty much a lot of the shows have been canceled, and again, other competitive events too. Like I had clients who were prepping for a powerlifting meet that got canceled, and so many different things. So what are your options, right? Because there's a lot of people who were either prepping or thinking of prepping this year, or have been prepping since last year.
Oh my god. Me,
Jill. And so we really just kind of wanted to talk about the options, and then just some of the problems that people are running into, and how to outweigh those pros and cons from a coaching perspective. So really the first option, of course, is to continue dieting and be ready for later shows. That's number one. And there's a lot of people who didn't start as early as you, and they might have started this year, so that's a more feasible option. They were already kind of aiming for later.
It's more of a different situation when you're just starting a diet, rather than someone like me who's been dieting for close to a year now. And that option has a lot of pros, because you can be ready early first and then reverse into the show. And I've already noticed, as we've been reverse dieting, where I'm in a much more comfortable place, like mentally and physically, where I'm feeling good. I'm not feeling as run down. Like
more tolerable.
It's definitely a more tolerable.
That's a good word.
Way to diet right now, especially since I just had to go through like a big move and everything with all of this other stuff up in the air. So it does make things easier and more tolerable when you can actually be in a position where you can reverse into a show. So that's a big benefit of it.
And that's the second option is, hey, if you were ready or close to being ready, you will start reversing into the show, and then you're ready to go at any point. And, and then the third option is to call the season and to stop prepping altogether. So we kind of want to walk through each of those. So, just as a general kind of guideline, as a coach, our ultimate goal is for somebody to be ready early so that we can reverse into the show. Now, typically, we're not saying reverse 3 months into the show. Like, that's not the goal. The goal is a few weeks. You still want to maintain that peak conditioning, but you want to bring food up. You want to restore muscle glycogen and fullness, get some solid training sessions in, reduce any inflammation. And that's kind of the place that you're at right now, right? Like, we've had a few weeks of this. You had some meals out, nothing crazy, but still like a lot more flexible than you were for many, many months. But, now we have to make that decision, because it's, your prep was starting so early. And now when we say she started prepping in last July, it wasn't like I was like, oh my God, crazy diet. Like,
definitely wasn't like, okay, we're grind time, from the start. No, it was more of like a slow, definitely a very slow, gradual process. And then as we've gotten down to the wire, I would say when we were around 16 or 20 weeks out, then we were like, this is the show.
We're going to do it.
We're going to aim for it. And then, pandemic happened. But
and I'm in the same situation right now with Tay Silva, and it was her pro debut season, and literally we had everything lined out perfectly. She took a year and a half off. Like, she was ready to go for her pro debut, and she looked, honestly, phenomenal that weekend. Like, it was like, this would have been the perfect timing, like, we planned this perfect. And she's in a position right now where it's like, hey, like, this is your best ever. And we started prepping early, but it was like December, what I mean? So a normal early, and I'm in the position with her right now to be like, hey, like, this is the best you've ever looked, and if we can hold on, like, you'll be ready for any show that comes up. The problem is that it's when you're at a really low body fat, and like Jill mentioned, now this feels more tolerable, yes, but it's still really hard. And there's a low grade anxiety that you have pretty much when your body fat is so low, because your body feels unsafe. It literally feels like, this is not, I shouldn't be this lean, I need more resources, and it's always kind of like very fight or flight feeling. So that is very normal. And even if I've added food with her, we've done a diet, we did like a pretty aggressive diet break, not just like reverse. Like we did, I think like 10 days of, higher food, and then, slowly bringing food up now. And even outside of that, it's still like, there's just so much uncertainty with, because we have this date in July that's supposedly going to happen, but we have no idea if it actually is going to happen. And then on top of that, like she is somebody who's, in the workforce currently right now. There's a lot of changes at her work, and she's in a very big city. So there's just like a lot of stuff going on right now. And, so just trying to manage that with her, has been tough. And it would be hard for anybody. So like, you guys are both in those situations where it's kind of hard. And, but then I have so many other clients right now who are like, hey, like all the national shows moved, like, I don't think I'm going to go for it this year. You know what I mean? Like I might do like a show or two, get qualified, and then I'm just going to be ready for next year. And that's a really okay option too. Yeah. And that's kind of what we're dealing with right now, is kind of deciding
like weighing out those options. And it does suck. I think just cause I feel like it's been 2 years since I've been on stage at this point. So
I'm like, oh yeah, it's not like it is an actual.
It is an actual 2 years. So I
Genius.
feel like it's so smart. I can do math sometimes. Anyway, it does suck just because it was really being built up. As we were getting closer to the show, and I'm like, I can't believe things moved so smoothly this prep compared to previous preps, especially with like the kind of off season I had too, where we dealt with a lot of hormonal issues and a lot of other bullshit, but
really fun stuff.
Really fun, all fun things that no one wants to go through. So,
but a lot of people go through. So,
but you know what, we got through it, and just getting to this point now, it's definitely a bummer. So I've been recently just weighing those options. And I know that, while I'm in the position where I'm looking the best I have, I also know I could still salvage maybe my 2021 season if I do cut things early and give myself more time to recover, as well as just, give myself a little bit of a break, because, especially with my dieting history, already, I've already been dieting, for a year again. So that's all stuff that we need to consider moving forward.
Yeah, and that's something that I think a lot of people, and trust me, I get it. If you guys listen to that podcast, what I would have done differently, there's, there's a lot that I don't regret, but then there are certain things that I do. And, some of that was getting on stage when I shouldn't have, and it just kind of compounding these issues. And again, it was my decision, so nobody's fault besides my own. But you have to take a look at the big picture, and that's where having, a coach is really helpful to say hey, not just this season, but it's what about the next seasons? And, unfortunately, there's a lot of coaches who only care about placings. They brag about how many pro cards they have and this and that. And honestly, if I didn't have any clients step on stage this year, just because of everything going on, I would be totally fine with that, because they're looking out for their long-term goals. Now, actually, I had a lot of people take off this year anyway, just based on when they competed last year and other stuff they were going through. So that was already going to be hey, there's a lot of people who aren't competing this year, which is totally fine. Yeah. But then even now, it's it's going to be even less. And I don't care. I would much rather somebody say, hey, what's my plan as an athlete over these next several years? And for some people, it makes perfect sense to compete this year because they were already going to do later shows. Yeah. They're in a good position to do that. But for other people, it just doesn't make sense. And they just say, hey, I don't want to be doing national shows in November and December, because then guess what happens next year? They happen again in May, and then now you've made no progress, right? And so, there's also some other problems that are kind of going on. We talked a little bit about the uncertainty, and that's just so mentally draining.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a big thing I've noticed in this prep, especially because I could do the food, I could do the cardio. I'm not someone who's gonna complain about that, or I'm gonna make it work. But when it comes to the uncertainty part this time around, this is something nobody's ever had to really go through. So obviously, it's not something that you get accustomed to, or something that that gets easier because it's not ideal.
Or you could plan for. There's nothing that we could have planned for this, and just also the uncertainty in regular life, you know what I mean? There's just a lot of stuff that's
a lot of extra anxiety on top of that.
Yeah, so that's kind of I think adding for everybody, hey, not even just the shows being canceled and the uncertainty there, just life uncertainty is playing into this too. And for some people it's been awesome because they've been able to focus a lot more than they have before, just because there's a lot of other distractions that are gone, right? Like, so some people are like, hey, I'm thriving in this. And then other people are like, yeah, this is like really weighing on me. And it's a very unique thing for everyone. And, one of the huge things is like the lack of proper gym equipment for a lot of people. You're lucky enough that you've been able, obviously, to train here. So that hasn't disrupted you. I have a handful of clients that have, home gyms and they have good equipment. And then I have some clients who literally are like, yeah, I got one band and like a 15-pound dumbbell. So for, people in situations like that, and no, not just our clients, but everybody who is a physique competitor, that's going to be a huge thing, and sure, you can still maintain with limited equipment, but it's still not going to be,
it's not
as ideal.
Of course it's not going to be ideal. And while, you can't really expect to make substantial progress or at least big changes.
It's more like mental sanity and
it's more so for the sanity and maintaining what we have.
Which has worked out. I'm thinking of one client that I have as an example who will be doing national shows this year, who is very muscular. So, for her, it from the mental perspective and the schedule perspective, it sucked to not have her gym. But I wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is somebody who I'm as concerned with muscle mass. Like, and it does, makes the dieting process easier when somebody's training normally. But again, she's somebody who I'm like, okay, like she's in a good position. So cool. But for other people who maybe are on the, the leaner, like, and less muscle kind of end, that's going to be really hard to, maintain with less if you're somebody who really, really needs the gym to kind of keep that going. So that's another thing that people have to be thinking about too, like, what kind of gym access do you have? And, or not even gym access, but like, what do you have? And honestly, I gotta say, like, I'm so proud of our clients for like gathering random things, random equipment, making it work. And, some people have like the, band and one dumbbell, but a lot of people have gathered enough to
I have a few like
make it work.
Garage gyms we're working with.
Well, some people have literally made, I had somebody today when I was training, I guess he just moved in and he was like, solid setup. He's like, is this from COVID or did you guys have this? I was like, honestly, we literally had just finished like adding all this stuff. Like, I think Ryan ended up getting like that whole rack of dumbbells. Like, we didn't have that. I don't know if you remember, like before all this, and like he probably finished getting those dumbbells around March. So like, thank God, you know what I mean? Because like now we've been using it obviously every single day, and or not every day, but close to. And so that's, but I was like, no, this actually isn't from that, but it's been really, really helpful.
Very convenient.
And then, the last problem too of, of kind of extending the season, is, being staged lean for too long will eat away at your muscle. If you're a natural athlete, that's what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Obviously, if you're assisted, that's going to be a little bit easier. But I would still argue that unless you're like blowing your face off with stuff, you're still going to have some muscle loss with a severe calorie restriction.
Yeah, of course, like with dieting, the goal is to, maintain that for as long as we can. But if you're ready and, you stay stage lean for longer than, we really anticipate it, then that's just, that's an issue that we're going to have to think about.
And there's been clients that I've trained who, they, maybe they were a little bit more muscular or they held on to muscle easier. And I'm thinking of, a few people who we were able to reverse for extended periods of time into the show and there was no issue, right? And then there's other people who, we do that for more than a few weeks and start eating away the muscle and they just don't look as good. And, that happens too. So it's going to be very different for everybody's body. And ultimately, you have to outweigh the pros and cons. Stage will always be there. I know everybody always says that. Clearly, it wasn't here this year, early on. But generally speaking,
it's always there.
Stage is always there. And I mean, I know we say this like ad nauseum, but I feel like we need to say it again. That you have to look, if you want to be the best competitive athlete that you can be, it's really not feasible to complete words. I always got to do something. If Lauren's listening,
I feel like I do that too a lot on the podcast. Like I'm writing articles for the site, but I'm like word vomit sometimes, and it doesn't sound like English.
Yeah, Blonde's always waiting for at the end. Like I always just miss it. She's like, there it is. Why'd you do this? Why did you do this? So the stage will always be there, except for, this year was a little bit of a weird year. But you have to think about, okay, as a competitor, like, what is my timeline? Like, what is my ultimate goal? To be the best competitor. And competing every single year is really not always feasible for people.
Ideal. Yeah.
Even if for some people, again, it is, because there are
different situations, all about context.
There's always context. Or you could say, hey, I'm going to push it for, a year or two back to back, and then I have to take an extended time off. The reason that most people, to be super honest, need to take time off is most people are not muscular enough.
Yeah.
Straight up. Most bikini competitors are not muscular enough. On top of that, when you don't have enough muscle and then you have to aggressively diet, then you're never really really recovering, and every time you diet down, you just look skinnier and skinnier, and that's not the goal, obviously. So if somebody is very close to a top placing and they have a solid base of muscle, those people can typically compete more frequently. But again, most people are not in that position, and especially if somebody, like, for example, obviously I love nationals as a show, but this is where I ran into issues too, because I did this 3 years in a row. Was doing something like a nationals, and then thinking that I could come back, take 2 months off, eat whatever, and then diet again, right? And again, unless you were absolutely perfect for that show, it's really hard to come back looking that same. And also, just from a metabolic and a hormonal perspective, it's just nearly impossible. And that's something that I've learned over my coaching career. And ultimately, it's mistakes that you have to make. But that's why I want to share them with people. I've gone through it personally. You've gone through it personally.
And you have to think about the psychology behind that too. Because I remember, I feel like I've taken a 3-month off season before getting back into dieting. And a lot of people can take that 2 to 3 month time span and be like, I want to do whatever I want in this 3 months before, and then you later kind of have to deal with the consequences of that.
And it always catches up, you know what I mean? It's not always immediate. And then again, that's something that I'm very open and vocal about with myself, doing that to myself, and then also with clients. I've made plenty of mistakes as a coach, but that's how you learn and say, hey, and when a client comes to me and says, oh, I want to do this, it's like, okay, from all these years of doing this, I'm seeing that this is not a good idea. And again, context, there's some people who can do it. There's people who competed last year who are competing this year again. But it's not the people who were competing at nationals, right? Those people are not competing this year, right? None of those clients that I had at nationals are competing this year, because they needed to take time off, and they also needed to do life and just a lot of things, you know what I mean? So ultimately, planning your competition season during a pandemic is going to be a challenging time for a lot of reasons. And it is, there's no right or wrong here, but you have to think about, okay, what's the best for me and my, trajectory as a client, and don't feel bad about taking. I think one of the biggest issues is people feel bad about throwing away their work.
Yeah, I feel like
that's probably what you're wrestling with too. Yeah,
because it's like, I'm not a quitter, you know? Like, no. I never complain about prep. Like, I never complain about the food or the cardio. No. Like, I'm making this choice.
I
mean, I make jokes about it. Like, Lauren's mean to me. She gives me no carbs. But, like, I'm not, I don't want to be like that. I don't know. It's like, I don't want to be seen as, like, a quitter because, shit's, like, uncertain. But at the end of the day, like, I've been dieting for a long time, and then also, like, there's a lot of other shit, like, I've realized, like, I have going on. So prep hasn't been, like, the number one, like, sole focus of mine the past few weeks even. I mean, I've been doing my shit, I've been on point.
It's just different.
But it's just not, like, the sole focus, or, like, I just have to get through this pandemic and then I'm back on stage. Like, it hasn't really been, like, the top priority in my life right now.
And that's okay. And I think a lot of people really struggle with that. And there's times when people want to quit on preps that I'm like, hey, like, why do you want to quit, right? And I can tell that it's coming from a place of it's coming from maybe the wrong place, right? And you're like, hey, no, like, I think you should stick it out, right? This is an irrational day. There's a lot of days where we have
just, like, come up where it's like me the other day, I guess, like, I was like, I had shitty photos, and then
that's
like, this is not the day to make decisions.
Exactly. That's why I was like, hey, we need to sit on this for a week, because
It's like, take a weekend to think about it.
Reading that tone, I've read that tone a million times, you know, and it's like, hey, this is not the time to decide. The time to decide is, you know, when you take some photos that you feel good, right? And you have a good week and you know, you're on track and you're logically clear-headed thinking, okay, hey, maybe this isn't the right time, or maybe it is, maybe I'll just push through. But I just want to let people know that it is okay. And, you know, you will be able to compete in the future. So there's no better time than now to, you know, put the investment into a quality off season, because, you know, getting your metabolism and your hormones and your mindset in the right place now will only serve you better in the future. So don't look at this time as if you decide to stop competing, that this is a waste. Look at that as like, hey, I have more time to come back even more kick-ass next year.
Yeah.
So for everybody out there who's struggling, we get it, we understand, we're in it firsthand, and we're dealing with this on a, you know, week by week basis with our clients as well. And, you know, hopefully we'll see some of you guys at some of the shows, but also who knows with that either, you know, that's, it's going to be a weird year with that too. And anyways, it's just going to be an interesting year. So do what's best for you, weigh out the pros and cons when you're in a logical kind of headspace, which I know can be tough with just everything going on and prepping. But you know, on a day that you feel good is kind of the day to make those pros and cons lists. So if you guys liked the show, please subscribe and leave a review. 10 stars.
Oh my god, I love how everyone in the comments or the reviews are giving it 10 stars.
It's amazing.
In the little subject line. Oh my god.
It literally, the best thing that's come out of this podcast is 10-star reviews and blonde.
Oh, hell yeah.
Like, that is like the two best things that
if you read the description of the podcast, she's referred to as blonde.
She's referred to as blonde. So yeah, we really appreciate all the kind comments, and it just helps the show get some more exposure. So if you could do that, subscribe, leave a comment, please do so. Share with a friend if you liked it too, and you know, got something out of this. And then for more information on programs, articles that, you know, the team and Jill have written, any products that we have, books, applications for coaching, etc., it's all on teamlocofit.com. You can just type that on into your web browser.
I feel like the little keyboard cat.
The keyboard. That's how
oh my god,
That's how I felt earlier when my internet was not working. I was like,
most days just me at my laptop.
Just the keyboard cat. If you guys know what we're talking about, he's like a fluffy, like gray cat who's just going crazy. So anyways, on that note, we're clearly losing it. Promise this wasn't a beer. We just, at the end of the podcast, get a little quirky. You know, that's just our personality. So
let us know if we should do a beer drinking podcast.
I think Jill just wants to get drunk.
I just want to get drunk. Okay, that's it. That's really just.
It's really what she's saying. So
I feel like I brought it up to like Steven 3 times. I'm like, I want to get wine drunk.
Like, hey, listen, if the week keeps going as planned, I'll give you a pass for that. All right, we're crazy. Let us know if you guys have any other questions, and we appreciate you so much. Bye.